In this episode, we talk about India's diplomatic efforts to maintain strong relations with its global partners post the Pahalgam attack. We also talk about the Vizhinjam International Seaport Limited, a seaport project that is providing employment to the local fisherman community of Kerala. But first, we talk about the threats being faced by the Kashmiris following the Pahalgam terror attack. Hi, I am Niharika Nanda, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Earlier this week, a 15-year-old Muslim student in Aligarh was assaulted and forced to urinate on a Pakistan flag by a group of men after he allegedly picked up the flag that they had placed on the road during the protest against the attack. And while extreme, this is not an isolated incident. Since the attack, in which 26 people were killed, Kashmiris in many parts of the country have faced threats, particularly from Hindu right-wing groups. And this has been the case in Uttarakhand as well, where earlier this week, 2 Kashmiri shawl sellers were assaulted by locals and students have been heckled and harassed. In this segment, my colleague Shashank Bhargav speaks to the Indian Express's Aishwarya Raj about these developments in the state.
Aishwarya, this is something that we have seen in some other parts of the country as well. But talk about what Kashmiris living and studying in Uttarakhand have faced after the attack.
So, after the Pahalgam incident, I got to know about a threat video that was going viral. And this was by the Hindu Raksha Dal, which is a Hindu outfit here in Uttarakhand, based in Dehradun. And it was a very aggressive video. This person called Lalit Sharma was speaking about how Kashmiri students have to leave the state by 10 a.m. the next day or they'll have to face consequences.
हिंदू रक्षा दल उत्तराखंड ने ये घोषणा की है कि कल से अगर कोई मुसलमान, शुरुआत हम देहरादून से करेंगे, कोई मुसलमान कश्मीरी हमें देहरादून में मिला तो हम उसका इलाज अवश्य करेंगे। कल 10 बजे से हिंदू रक्षा दल की टीम अपने अपने घरों से निकलेगी और कहीं भी कश्मीरी मुसलमान मिलता है उसका इलाज करेगी। देखिए हम सरकार के भरोसे कभी तक नहीं बैठेंगे।
What happened after that was the next day there was also a rally taken out by the same outfit in Dehradun, and before that could happen, the Kashmiri students, after seeing the video, they were panicking, and one of them, he does not wish to be named, so he was telling me that once he got out of his campus, the locals were also insinuating that they should leave because it's not the right place or right time for them to stay here, and they got really scared. And he was telling me that at 2 a.m. the same night, they had to leave and they left for the airport and they booked a ticket for 6 p.m. the same evening from Dehradun to Delhi, and from there they had a connection flight. So all of this happened really quickly, and the next day we also got to know that police had taken action against them. Police filed an FIR, but they were detained. But the follow-up of that, we're not sure if they were arrested and what happened after that.
And one thing you point out in your piece, for example, is that this student who was being heckled, he was actually being heckled by those who knew him since he had joined college.
Yeah, so I asked him if they knew him from before, if they knew his identity, if he was a Kashmiri Muslim. So he said that, yeah, they did. So when they had joined, they had a good rapport with them. These were locals staying outside their campus. So they used to meet, they used to speak, they used to have a frequent conversation. And then when this happened, it all turned around. So he was telling me that though they were not threatening him, they were still implying that they should not be here. So from that, he got really anxious about it. And his mother also saw the videos coming from Uttarakhand and then other parts of the country as well. And the parents urged him to come back.
And you also spoke to the Jammu and Kashmir Students Association. What was their reaction?
So Nasir, who is the coordinator of the JKSA, he informed me this was happening. Interestingly, the organization was created in 2019 when the students had faced another episode of violence in Uttarakhand in the wake of Pulwama attack. So that is when they started their organization. That's when they had this network to report on what was happening across the country against Kashmiri students. So when this was happening, we were in touch and he told me that they were anticipating such things happening across the country. So when it happened, he was tweeting about it and he got in touch and we had a chat, and he was telling me that he was also facing a lot of problems because he was getting all these threat calls from Uttarakhand, and he was also concerned about situation here.
And Aishwarya, the other incident we came to know about in this regard involved two Kashmiri shawl sellers who were attacked on a mall road. Could you tell us who they were and where this incident took place?
Yeah, so while we have to see that this attack was against Kashmiris, we also have to understand that Uttarakhand has been seeing a lot of attacks against minorities of late or over the last few years. And hate crimes have been reported every now and then. And regarding this incident, it happened in Mussoorie, and this was on 23rd of April, a day after the attack in Pahalgam. And what happened was, we can see that in a video that two vendors they're being heckled by these right-wing groups, and this was Bajrang Dal people, and they were heckling them, they were calling them all kinds of abuses, they were even slapping the two of them, asking them to leave.
पुलिस वाले ने बोला था ना तुम्हें उस टाइम बंद कर
So when I was speaking with the vendors, they told me that they were there because the municipal corporation allots them times to sit on the mall road at these points, and they were actually permitted to do it, permitted to sell their shawls and their suits there. So on April 23rd night, these people come and they start heckling them, they start threatening and slapping them. And on the same night, they told me that they returned to their homes. At least 16 of them are living together near the mosque in Mussoorie. And they have been living there for some time. So this is a very seasonal job for them. They stay in Uttarakhand for almost 9 months of the year, and they stay in Dehradun in the winters. And once the summers set in, they come back. They come to Mussoorie. So it's been going on for so long, and they have been living there, and all their stuff is even, they have left it there when they returned to Kashmir. So at 11 o'clock at night, they claim that police came to their doorstep and told them to leave because they allegedly said that their safety was not their responsibility. But when I spoke with the police, they said that they did not ask everyone to leave, but only those people who have not registered or who have not gotten verification done with the police, they were asked to leave.
And wait, why would they need to get verification done?
So this is a very recent drive by the Uttarakhand police, and in Dehradun, they started it last week, where they are trying to register every tenant and every outsider with the police. So it's a recent phenomenon.
And after these two vendors were attacked, what was the reaction of the other vendors in the area?
So these two were living with the others, which is why everyone decided to move out. Everyone decided to leave. And another thing is, as a background, I'll tell you, in 2018, another incident had happened. So when there was a match between India and Pakistan, some children were alleged to have raised slogans, pro-Pakistan slogans, and this resulted in the traders' body boycotting Kashmiri vendors. They were asked to leave Mussoorie. So what happened was, these children were not even Kashmiri Muslims, and we don't know what actually happened with the case in that. And a lot of people had left back then. And otherwise, if we are looking at the state, especially Dehradun, in places where there are Muslim vendors or Muslim businesses, there have been hate speech and other incidents reported in which right-wing people, they have been detained as well. There are FIRs against them. So it has been going on for some time.
And earlier you mentioned how when the police had visited these vendors, they told them that their security is not their responsibility and essentially asked them to leave. But has the police taken any action since?
So when the threat video had come out and initially Kashmiri students were leaving Uttarakhand for Kashmir, there was this reaction by the police. They were trying to meet with all the stakeholders and assure them that nothing would happen. And they were also speaking with the deans and the other college authorities. And the CM had also met with the cabinet minister of Jammu and Kashmir to assure them of all help and safety. An FIR was also registered. But in this case, it's interesting to note that the Mussoorie case, 3 people were arrested. All of them were Bajrang Dal. And they were not arrested with an FIR. They were arrested under Section 81 of the Police Act, Uttarakhand Police Act. And they were let go of the same day after a fine was taken from them. So now Kashmiri groups, even the Jammu and Kashmir Students Association, has spoken about it, has raised this issue that they were not dealt with, in the right manner, that a case has not been registered.
And anything we've heard from the government or the chief minister regarding this?
So far, the government has not come up with any statement regarding this. But the police have been speaking about it. Police have been sending press releases regarding their meetings with the stakeholders and other matters and the action that they have taken against these offenders. But other than that, no announcement has come from the government.
And also, speaking of the government, many from the minority communities and even the opposition, they have been speaking out against government actions which they view as communal or those targeting minorities. And one of them is the state's clampdown on madrasas. So could you talk a bit about that?
So over the last few months, the government has also been sealing madrasas across the state. And the reason they've given for this is the madrasas are not registering with the government. And at least 180 have been shut across the state now. And to add to this, there were 2 incidents of mazar demolitions in the last week. And that too at night, late night. And one was in Uttam Singh Nagar and another in Dehradun. And the logic given by the government is that it was on the government land. One was a project to widen the road and the mazar stood on the way. And the second one was inside the Doon Medical College Hospital. But the Waqf board had clarified that both these properties, both these mazars were registered with the board. So tensions have been rising regarding that as well. And many groups, including the opposition, including Congress, have spoken about it.
And next we talk about India's diplomatic efforts. After the Pahalgam attack, India has not only stepped up security and intensified efforts to track down the terrorists, but also launched a strong diplomatic offensive against Pakistan. New Delhi is actively engaging with its strategic partners, seeking support and pushing for strong international condemnation of the act. In this segment, we speak to the Indian Express's diplomatic affairs editor Shubhajit Roy about these diplomatic efforts and what India hopes to achieve at this moment. Shubhajit, since the Pahalgam terror attack, what kind of support and messages has India received from its global partners?
So in the last 1 week or so, ever since the Pahalgam terror attack, India has received sort of messages of support and solidarity from all the major countries, especially the G20 countries, India's neighbors, also from the Gulf and Europe. So we have seen a pretty broad-based sort of pouring of messages, calls from several world leaders, including US President Donald Trump, who was in fact the first foreign leader to call Prime Minister Modi and express his condolences about the attack. And now we've also seen several of the foreign ministers and other world leaders also calling up the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. And in the last week, the Foreign Secretary has also met many of the ambassadors to brief them about the attack, about what are the kind of findings they have had from the investigations, from the initial investigations. And there also, what we have been told is that the foreign ambassadors based in Delhi have also conveyed their sympathies and condolences, as well as expressed support at this time of crisis to the Indian government.
And India has been trying to garner support. As a part of that, M. Anand Prakash, India's Joint Secretary for Pakistan, Afghanistan and Iran, he recently visited Afghanistan. Do we know what came out of that meeting?
Yeah, so as you rightly mentioned, M. Anand Prakash, who is currently Joint Secretary in charge of Pakistan, Afghanistan and Iran in the Ministry of External Affairs, he visited Kabul over the weekend, early this week, and he met the Taliban Foreign Minister Amir Muttaqi, and where they discussed several things, including the humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan, about the situation in the region. And even before he went there to Kabul, the Taliban-run Afghan Foreign Ministry issued a statement against the terror attack, which was pretty well received by the Indian government. It was seen very positively by the Indian government.
And Shubhajit, what would you say is the significance of Taliban condemning this act?
Well, the Taliban, the fact that it has sort of condemned the attack and expressed, condolences on the loss of lives at a time when it has had a very antagonistic relationship with Pakistan has been seen very positively by India.
And we understand that a similar statement condemning the attack also came from Turkey. Considering its previous statements on Kashmir, what makes this one stand out?
Yeah, so the Turkish Foreign Ministry's statement is also very interesting because Turkey has been seen as in siding with the Pakistan government in the last several years, especially on the issue of Kashmir. But Turkey's statement called the Pahalgam attack a terrorist attack. It did not refer to Jammu and Kashmir as disputed territory. And overall, it condemned the attack. So these were all sort of markers or indicators of a very strong and positive statement when it comes to India.
And Shubhajit, India also reached out to the non-permanent members of the United Nations Security Council as part of its diplomatic offensive. And the UNSC, in fact, also gave a statement regarding the attack where it said that the members of the Security Council condemned in strongest terms the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir. And it also expressed its deepest sympathy and condolences to the families of the victims, adding that those responsible for these killings should be held accountable and urged all states, in accordance with their obligations under international law and relevant Security Council resolutions, to cooperate actively with all the relevant authorities in this regard. So what was India's reaction to this statement? And also, in a situation like this, what role does the United Nations Security Council play?
Yeah, before the statement was issued, very tough negotiations took place in New York within the UN Security Council, where Pakistan is right now a non-permanent member at the UN Security Council for 2 years and didn't want the mention of a government of India in the statement. So the Pakistanis wanted instead to refer to all relevant authorities, which was sort of accepted. India also could not get the naming of the resistant front in the statement, which had earlier claimed responsibility for the attack. Of course, later it sort of withdrew that claim. But Pakistan and China blocked the reference. Pakistan, on the other hand, was not also able to get the word dispute added with Jammu and Kashmir. And there India was able to prevail there. So we saw Pakistan and China acting in concert, acting in tandem to have a statement which was not to India's liking. So what the Indian government has now started doing is that it started reaching out to all the other non-permanent members at the UN Security Council. And we saw Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar calling up his counterparts, the foreign ministers of Algeria, Greece, Guyana, Panama, Sierra Leone, Slovenia, and Somalia. They're all currently on the UN Security Council for a 2-year term as non-permanent members. So essentially trying to rally support in India's favor. And he's also now spoken to the foreign minister of Denmark as well. And so we see an Indian diplomatic offensive towards garnering support in favor of India when it comes to this Pahalgam terrorist attack.
Right. And Foreign Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar also had a phone conversation with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. What do we know about what was discussed on that phone call?
Well, in that call as well, they spoke about the UN Security Council statement and what Minister Jaishankar, he said that he appreciated, Secretary General Antonio Guterres' unequivocal condemnation of the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, and he agreed on the importance of accountability. And he said that India is resolved that the perpetrators, planners, and the backers of this attack are brought to justice. So I think that was the Indian statement. The UN spokesperson said that, the UN Secretary General had called for de-escalation and sort of restraint from both sides, because he also spoke to the Pakistan foreign minister. What we are seeing is ever since the 22nd April terror attack, India and Pakistan have both engaged in an intense diplomatic offensive, diplomatic power play, and both Delhi and Islamabad have been trying to mobilize international support.
Shubhajit, you mentioned that during the negotiations in New York regarding the UNSC statement, China and Pakistan were pretty much in tandem. What does this alignment mean for India's situation right now?
Well, what we have seen is that, while China did issue a statement expressing its condolences on the Pahalgam terrorist attack, but in the last few days we have seen after Pakistan offered to sort of said that it was open to a neutral probe, and the Chinese government, Chinese foreign ministry, has supported that call for an impartial probe as well. So we see that Pakistan and China have sort of are working together in this case, and sort of also while negotiating the statement at the UN Security Council, also we saw the two countries backing each other up. I mean, rather China backing Pakistan. So, which is sort of not a very ideal situation for India.
And Shubhajit, at this time, how important is it for India to ensure that its diplomatic relations with partners around the world remain strong?
Yeah, I think it's very important at this point of time when India is sort of, still reeling from this attack in which 26 people were killed, of whom 25 were Indians and one Nepalese national. In this kind of a situation, as India is contemplating retaliatory options, kinetic options, military options. It has already taken some diplomatic options. At this point of time, India would like to have support from the world, especially in the actions that it is taking in its self-defense.
And in the end, we talk about a multi-purpose seaport that is providing livelihood to the local fisherman community. Today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be inaugurating the Vizhinjam International Seaport Limited, a multi-purpose seaport project which is slated to emerge as a key hub in the Asia-Europe shipping route. The project is being executed by Adani Ports and SEZ Private Limited on a design, build, finance, operate and transfer model. Trial run at the port began last July and commercial operations followed months later. The Indian Express's Shaju Philip reports that this is happening 2 years after the fisherfolk in the area had staged a protest against the project. A senior official at the port said 755 people have been employed at the port by its operations partners and contractors. Shaju quotes him saying, "At present, approximately 67% of the workforce is from Kerala, with 57% from Thiruvananthapuram district alone. Besides, 35% are specifically from the local region. We have employed 9 women, particularly from the local fishing community, to operate large automated cantilever rail-mounted gantry cranes, also known as CRMG cranes. This is the first time in any Indian port that women are operating such machinery." Steffi Ribeira, one of the 9 women operators of the CRMG cranes at the Vizhinjam International Seaport Limited, worked as a teacher in private schools for several years. Shaju quoted her saying, "When the port advertised for science graduates, I had applied for the job of crane operator. Of the 20 crane operators, 9 are women. When all male operators have exposure in other ports, we have on-job training at Vizhinjam Port." Preenu, another CRMG crane operator at the port from the fisherfolk community, told Shaju that the port authorities gave preference to eligible applicants who were science graduates from the local fishermen community. Local people getting jobs has helped change the mindset of the youths who otherwise would have taken up the traditional fishing jobs or would have flown abroad for a livelihood. In 2022, fishermen in the region under the aegis of the Catholic Church had staged protests against the port project that turned violent. They had alleged that its construction is causing massive sea erosion and may take away their livelihoods. Now the local clergy is encouraging people to utilize the job opportunities provided by the port. The state government, in association with VISL, has established a centre of the Additional Skill Acquisition Programme, Kerala, a state undertaking to improve the employability of youths at Vizhinjam. Shaju reported that of the trained local people, 17 people have been appointed at the port as truck drivers and 24 as lashers. More port-based courses are being planned at the centre to enable the local people to tap emerging jobs in the region. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank Bhargav and me, Niharika Nanda. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.